Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to talk about a technical side of a racing motorcycle of the 1960s. The braking of the lightweight motorcycles meant that, as good as they needed to be, they weren't stopping as much weight as a 2024 bike. The Yamaha replica that I'm creating used drum brakes front and rear. The rear brake was just like the tiller of a ship or yacht. It would steady the bike, it would control slides, but it was never going to keep the back wheel on the floor. As soon as you dabbed the back brake, there was a potential for the front forks to dip and the back wheel to come off the floor. Once you have the wheel off the floor, you're out of control. So you would never need to lock the back wheel, and a lightweight brake was always, or usually, a single leading shoe drum brake. Imagine two brake shoes following the contour of the rear drum, with one pivot point and one point which opened and closed directly in response to touching the brake pedal. You moved the cam within the rear drum, and the diameter of the internals expanded until they touched the drum of the moving wheel. And this is how you slowed down the rear wheel of a race bike. The linings, well, they needed to stand the test of time over a race, so they had to withstand the heat. But not as much as the front brake. What did we have as a front brake? State-of-the-art front drum brakes were twin leading shoe. As the name suggests, you have two pivot points and two cams. When you pulled the front lever, the brake lever on the right hand side of the bike, you turned a cam within the drum and the shoes moved out until they touched the brake drum. How big were these twin lead and shoe front brakes? Did they suffer from heat problems? Well, if a wheel was typically 18-inch diameter, anywhere between 6 and 10-inch diameter would be suitable for a race bike. The bigger the better. Did they suffer from heat? Yes, there was lots of heat dissipation needed to keep the wheel round and performing well throughout the race. Could you be over-braked? That's a moot point. I don't think you could. Feel for a brake was like anything in any performance sport. On-off is not the answer. A gradual retardation of the bike is what you're looking for. Let's have a look at the twin lead and shoe brake. Here we are looking at a twin lead and shoe drum brake, typical of a 60s race bike. What happens? We have a cable that's stopped here and attached to this lever here. As you pull the front brake, the cable inner pulls up, moves this lever upwards, and this lever follows downwards. Notice it's like a parallelogram with adjustment. And this is so we can have an anti-torque stop lever. This piece of metal attached to the fork leg means that this disc plate doesn't move at any time. So it's mounted on the axle, it's attached with a torque lever, and we have a parallelogram of two levers turning. Well, let's see what they are turning. At the end of each lever there's a pivot, pivot 1, pivot 2. When we pull the front brake lever, this cam rotates, pushes this drum out and touches the inner surface of the brake hub. It's also repeated on this. We have another cam, because if you remember, these two work together. When you pull the front brake lever, we get a movement out of the The brake material mounted on each of the shoes expands to meet the drum. When it meets the drum, it transfers the friction into stopping power, and the harder you pull the front brake, the more the drum is tried to slow down and eventually stop. How can we improve this basic setup? Air scoops, sometimes mounted on the brake plate, holes for cooling, gauze strips, air scoops. We may well see a load of holes in this area and a large air scoop catching the air as we go along. So that's a typical twin leading shoe of the 1960s. Just for completeness, I'll show the similar brake plate with the one lever a torque arm bracket and inside that cam is turning so that these shoes expand outwards when you press the brake, and they slow down the back wheel by these two friction pads moving outwards and touching the brake plate, brake drum. I hope that's give you a little more understanding of what the brakes were like in the 60s. They were soon to be replaced with disc brakes, but that's another story. Thanks for watching. Join me again soon.